Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Uh, Role of psychology in everyday life. Actually, there are dozens of fields and disciplines in the psychology. So each field and discipline play a specific role in the society, in our uh, social life. So the role is described with the help of fields of psychology. First of all, there are mainly two branches of psychology that are pure or basic psychology, and the second one is applied psychology. Actually, the pure psychology is the knowledge of psychology, study of psychological issues for the sake of knowledge, not for practical application. For example, a research on a particular topic. In applied psychology, we apply this knowledge, and this is actually related to the particular practical work. Study of practically significant psychological issues and their applications. For example, practical use of the knowledge. Then there is a brief classification of psychology, that these branches are uh, included in pure psychology, including general psychology, development, social, abnormal, experimental, parapsychology, geo, and physiological psychology. In applied psychology, clinical, industrial, forensic, military, sports, educational, political, and engineering psychologies. Most of branches are showing their specificity by their name, like जनरल मीन एक जनरल सी जैसे होती हैं, एंड द डेवलपमेंटल मीन related to development, social mean related to society or social life, abnormalities explaining, and experimental mean related to the experiments. It's not experimental psychology is pure psychology, because in we know that in psychology experiments and researches mean that in these experiments we do research from the people. It is merely theoretical, ये थ्योरी का सारा नॉलेज होता है. देयर इज़ नो specific or particular practical work. And next, para, geo, and physiological mean related to a body, related to physiology. Clinical mean related to medical field. And industrial mean industry से related, forensic mean law से related, military mean military से related, sports games से, educational mean एजुकेशन के शोबे से, फील्ड से रिलेटेड, पॉलिटिक्स से रिलेटेड, और इंजीनियरिंग के शोबे से रिलेटेड. दीज ऑल include practical work. First of all, we have clinical physiology, clinical psychology. The clinical psychologist identifies problems related to emotions and mental and behavioral problems in the lives of people. They identify psychological, emotional, or behavioral issues and diagnose psychological, emotional, or behavioral disorders, and develop and implement treatment plans and therapeutic processes. They also perform psychotherapy and develop treatment plans. साइकोथेरापीज़ जो ये परफॉर्म करते हैं उनमें कोग्निटिव बिहेवियर थेरापी, और दूसरी है रेशनल इमोटिव बिहेवियर थेरापी. तो ये क्लिनिकल साइकोलॉजिस्ट हैं that identifies and diagnose the problems and then treat these problems that are related to the emotions and mental um, processes and the behavior of the people. Next we have counseling psychologist. uh, these psychologists uh, help people with physical, emotional, and mental health issues improve their sense of well-being. The feeling of distress and resolve crisis. The people that are feeling distress and disturbance in their life get help from the counseling psychologist, and they also provide assessment, diagnose, and treatment of more severe psychological symptoms. These professionals share many commonalities with clinical psychologists. Mean mostly they have common um, work to do. And here we have two terms: prejudice, mean ta'assub, uh, pre-convinced opinion that is not based on the reason or actual experience, and then persuade यानी किसी को कायल करना, induce someone to do something through reasoning or argument. These two are related to the counseling people, so these are included. And the next is developmental psychology. Developmental psychology, as the name is showing, that it is related to the development. We know that in psychology, development means the behavioral development in the people from which an individual passes after his birth till his death. And developmental psychologists study how people grow, develop, and adopt at different life stages. They conduct researches designed to help people reach their full potential. For example, studying the difference between learning styles in babies and adults. Now, the difference in learning styles show development, their development stage. Next, we have physiological psychology or biological psychology, that is related to the body of human being. The studies the neural that studies physiological psychologist studies the neural mechanisms of perception and behavior through direct manipulation of the brains of non-human animals subjects in controlled experiments. Mean here are their main studies uh, fields, that are neurology related to brain, genetic variables, and behavioral variables. They study these topics in the human being, and for the welfare of human being. In controlled experiments, they study non-human animals. Next, we have behavioral psychologists that study and analyze observable behavior. Watson contributed to the behavioral school of psychology. Behaviorism is the theory suggesting that environment shapes human behavior. So most human behavior has multiple causes. Mean behavior की formation behavior formation is affected by many aspects and many factors in our environment. These are not the single one that are affecting. There is no someone a single factor that affects the behavior of a person. Here it is important that functionalists focused on the purpose of consciousness and behavior. Uh, Next we have cognitive psychologists. that examine internal mental processes such as memory, perception, learning, and language. Uh, Memory mean ability to store data. Perception mean ability to get things, to understand things. Uh, Learning means changing in behavior with the time, and language means speaking ability. They are concerned with how people understand, diagnose, and solve problems and make decisions. And the then they these psychologists focus on how people attain, process, and recall information, and the people with abnormalities are treated by the cognitive psychologists. Personality psychologists observe the social situation and how they are influenced by the individual emotion and conduct. They explain behavior in areas such as aggression, persuasion, attraction, conformity, and group interaction. Many specialize in a niche such as leadership, attitude, group behavior, and conflict resolution. Mean uh, Specifically, personality psychologists uh, study and diagnose the effects of society on a particular person, and they diagnose the abnormalities in behavior of a person, and then give treatment to the such peoples. Educational psychologists that are related to education, and they are helping in the field of education. These sports schools at the local authority to improve all children's experience of learning. They use their training in psychology and knowledge of child development to assess difficulties children may be having with their learning. They play important role in curriculum design, and this might involve developing instructional strategies and teaching techniques. They give instructions, uh, and they improve teaching techniques of the teachers and help the children to get and understand um, their uh, their lessons and to get rid of their weakness. Then we have forensic psychologist. They are also referred as criminal profiler. Forensic psychologists focus on the relationship between psychology and law. It is very helpful in chasing the criminals and the diagnosis of criminals. This might involve acting as a consultant in criminal cases or civil disputes, performing child custody evaluations, and offering psychotherapy service to crime victims. In their line of work, they study the behavior of criminals and address anything from psychological theories to legal issues. So they help uh, in decreasing the crime in the society. And next we have organizational psychologist that works at industry and organization level, also known as IO psychologist. They study the workplace behavior such as how to select the best employees for a particular job and how to increase worker productivity. They use psychological principles and research methods to solve problems in the workplace and improve the quality of life and the quality of their work and the quantity of their work. Organizational mean that people working in a group, so they study workplace productivity and management and the employees working style. They get a feel for the moral and personality of a company or organization. Mean they observe the moral level of the people and their behavior, uh, that are working in an organization at a particular industry. Next, we have social psychology, that is related to our social life. Social psychologists study interpersonal and group dynamics and social challenges such as um, prejudice and implicate base, criminal activity, and substance abuse. They research social interactions and the factors that influence them, such as group behavior, attitude, public perception, and leadership. They study social structure and social role, cultural uh, ethnology and religion, marriage and family issues, psychosexual behaviors, and drug and alcohol usage. They study the abnormalities at society level and then treat them with their knowledge. Next, we have engineering psychology. Engineering psychologists that utilize their capabilities at engineering level, they use psychological principles to solve real world problems. People who work in this profession are able to help and improve uh, human lives by minimizing the risk of accidents and uh, errors. Engineering psychologists can make products, systems, and workplace safer. There is a specific field related with the engineering psychology, that is aviation psychologist, that study the aspects related to the pilot's performance. They work with engineers to design components of airplane. Here we have group dynamics and ergonomics. Group dynamics is the interaction of complex intra and interpersonal forces operating in a group. We determine its character development and long term survival. Ergonomics, the applied science of equipment design as for the workplace, intended to maximize productivity by reducing operator fatigue and discomfort. Ergonomics is related to the engineering field, and group dynamics is majorly related to social psychology or organizational psychology. Next, we have experimental psychology. Experimental psychologists use scientific method to collect data and perform research. Often, the work build on one study at a time to a larger findings or collection. Some researchers have devoted their entire career to answering one complex research question. Experimental psychologist works at human as well as on non-human animals. In human, they study the perception, uh, which may be visual, auditory, or speech, and motor processes, cognitive processes like learning or memory, motivation and emotions, and attention and consciousness. At non human level, they study social instinctive behavior and learning and motivation. The next we have sports psychologists uh, that help the players. Sports psychologists are licensed mental health professionals who function as trainers, consultants, or therapists that assist athletes from all sport discipline. Actually, they motivate and persuade the players to perform better, to get rid of their distress, and they help athletes uh, to rebuild, rehabilitate, rehabilitate after injury, and deal with anxiety, improve athlete performance, and achieve their goals. Next is the psychometrics, that is related with the uh, that is very near to the mathematical calculations. That is a scientific discipline concerned with the construction of assessment tools, measurement instruments, and formalized models that may serve to connect observable phenomena, response to items in an IQ test, and to theoretical uh, attributes like intelligence. There is a definition of psychometric test. This is a test that is an activity or assessment that is conducted in order to evaluate a candidate performance and includes uh, but is not limited to skills, knowledge, abilities, personality traits, attitudes, and job academics potential. Mean it is applied to analyze the capabilities of an individual to evaluate his performances, but is not only limited to skills, knowledge, abilities, and personality traits, but many more areas are included or fall under the psychometrics. Then at the end we have a brief difference in psychiatrists and psychologists. Psychiatry, the IT refers to medical treatment. So this specialist is related to the medical field, and it is a medical doctor, and he helps both mental and physical aspects of psychological problems. They conduct and prescribe medical treatments. However, psychology meanology refers to the study of a topic, and it is an advanced degree, extensive training in research or clinical practice, and they specialize in psychological testing and evaluation. They does not prescribe medicine to the patients. However, these all fields are interrelated. We cannot say that there are no hard and fast rules, hard and fast boundaries of a specific field. These all are interrelated. Here are the similarities in psychiatrists and psychologists, that they are expert in mental health, and they conduct psychotherapy. This was all about the role of psychology in everyday life. Thank you for watching video. Allah Hafiz.